started thinking to myself, I wonder if I can find any evidence of Black secularism and free thought in slave narratives, right? These are usually sources that are traditionally used by historians to help explain the rise of African American religion. In fact, most studies of Black religion during the antebellum period, a lot of them use slave narratives to great effect. I started doing research in them and I actually found a lot of evidence that in the 19th century, atheism arose in slave communities in the South, largely as a response to the rise of pro-slavery religion, right, or theological justifications for the institution of slavery, as well as what enslaved people saw to be sort of the hypocrisy of their Christian masters, right? So from there, I just sort of took the story forward, right? I thought, well, what are some other kind of major intellectual or political movements where we might see free thinkers? So after the era of slavery, I started doing some work in the Harlem Renaissance. And I thought to myself, you know, in this day and age, a lot of well-educated, at least some of the free thinkers I know are very sort of well-educated, right? You know, maybe educated in science or philosophy or whatnot. So I thought, let me go and look at and see like who are the kind of intellectuals of the early 20th century? What are they saying about religion? And I found that a lot of the writers of the Harlem Renaissance period, which is what chapter 2 of the book focuses on, a lot of those writers were likewise free thinkers, right? Langston Hughes, Claude McKay, Alain Locke, Zora Neale Hurston, Nella Larson, W.E.B. Du Bois. And there are plenty of sources, right? Archival sources, correspondence, personal papers, novels, right? Nella Larson's Quicksand, which Sikivu Hutchinson analyzes in her book, Moral Combat. Also autobiographies. Langston Hughes's autobiography, The Big C, he talks about the origins of his non-belief, right? Zora Neale Hurston's autobiography, Dust Tracks on a Road, same thing. So, you know, there are all types of wonderful sources documenting the presence and significance of free thought in Black cultural, intellectual, and political life during the early 20th century. Now, right around the same time as the Harlem Renaissance, you also have the rise of African-American socialists and communists. And I thought to myself, this is a group of people who you're probably very likely to also see free thinkers, right? I'd come across Jeffrey Perry's biography of Hubert Harrison, and he also has a collection of primary source documents from Harrison. And I thought to myself, you know, if Hubert Harrison is agnostic, right, it's probably the case that other Black socialists and communists during this time period are free thinkers, especially because these are political parties that among white adherents of socialism and communism are known to be very sort of antithetical to religion. Right, the Comintern, the Communist International in 1926 put out a directive towards communists all across the world, basically saying, we expect you to be atheists, right? That the default position, religious position of communists is atheist, and that our political philosophy is antithetical to Christianity. Now, for African Americans, that story would be kind of complicated. Robin D.G. Kelly, in his work Hammer and Hoe, shows that a lot of Black communists in the South were actually able to sort of fuse their Christianity and their belief in communism, right? But for Black communists in the North, in Chicago, in Detroit, in New York City, they're much more likely to be free thinkers, right? So Harry Haywood, one of the leading Black communists of the 1920s and 1930s, the man who came out with what is known as the Black Belt thesis, basically saying that African Americans are a nation within a nation who are deserving of self-determination like other nations around the world. He was an agnostic, just like Hubert Harrison. Others were Louise Thompson Patterson, right? W.B. Du Bois as well. He's somebody who sort of spanned the Harlem Renaissance and socialism and communism. Richard Wright, famed novelist of Native Son, was a communist for a while before he eventually kind of threw off communism and embraced existentialism, right? But a number of leading Black intellectuals and radical political activists in the 1920s and 1930s embraced communism, right? So even before the civil rights movement, we have a very long and kind of vibrant history of African American free thought, and a history of free thought really informing Black intellectual and political life, especially sort of radical political life.